In the past few years, speedrunning has seen massive growth in the number of players participating across many games from many generations. As a speed game, Moving Out has not experienced the kind of explosion that other games may have, nor has it had the time to. Even so, Moving Out enjoys a dedicated and tightly knit community that, when they sink their teeth into a level, will optimize it beyond recognition. This is the story of Tightrope, Moving Out's most optimized level. Moving Out is a game where you take control of a mover, whose job it is to move all of the furniture in a level to your moving truck. In most levels, this involves moving many pieces of furniture, but the level Tightrope is a special type of level, an arcade level. Arcade levels are a speedrunner's dream. With only one piece of furniture to move, the fastest times can only be completed by taking as straight a line as possible to the finish, as walking takes time and speedrunners want to save as much time as possible. Let's start by taking a look at the level. As the name implies, Tightrope is all about precision, making the player feel as though they are walking on a tightrope. The level starts out with the player picking up a single box, the only furniture to be moved in the level. To reach the moving truck at the finish, players must traverse a variety of obstacles. First, the player must jump across a series of floating platforms that make a sharp turn to the left. After making it past this, the player reaches a bridge whose pieces move out of position on a cycle. After this is a staircase the player must jump up. Next is a blind jump to more floating platforms, and finally the player must run across another bridge whose pieces move in a wave-like pattern to reach the finish. The first recorded time on Tightrope comes from a user named MGK also named Ryan, with a time of 28.93 seconds. Ryan had found out that with a precise jump and good timing, you could skip the first curve of the level, saving about 5 seconds. However, Ryan saw much more potential time saved in the level. To quote him directly, "You can make that first jump without clipping on the box too, but only got it once." This comment inspired another player, Sleepyhead08, to try their hand at the level. Sleepy was new to the game, but was enticed by Ryan's mention of an unused strategy. With little routing experience, Sleepy was restricted to previously theorized routing, but was able to grind to a 28.43, 0.4 seconds faster than Ryan. Sleepy's run was the first to incorporate the jump without using the box, but with little experience running the game, he lost a lot of time in rounding corners through the rest of the level, ending up losing a lot of time he had saved. Knowing that his lines were less than great, Sleepy began playing the level to improve his consistency, bringing the world record down to a 27.82. This run, however, did not include the boxless jump used previously. At the time, simply running straighter lines was enough to offset the need for the jump. It was at this point when new runner Blastix stepped in to try his hand at getting the record. An unknown runner at the time, he stormed onto the leaderboards with a 27.19, over 0.6 seconds faster than the previous world record. Blastix had gotten a fast box jump, perhaps the fastest possible, and maintained good lines throughout. With a new opponent on the field, this inspired Sleepy to come back to Tightrope to improve his own personal best, eventually narrowly beating Blastix by 0.14 seconds, bringing the world record down to a 27.05. At this point, it is important to mention how cycles work on arcade levels. At the beginning of each level, there are 2 screens that appear before the player can take control of their character. Both of these screens can be skipped very quickly, allowing the runner to start their run as soon as possible. However, when dealing with levels like Tightrope, which have moving parts that operate on a cycle, it is sometimes faster to wait on the start screen before assuming control, as the timer doesn't start until the player starts moving. Sleepy's 27.05 borrowed from Blastix's new run by starting his movement after both screens had faded away on their own, whereas previous records had no standard as to when to start movement. This discovery by Blastix would go on to be used in many other arcade levels as well. Where Sleepy had saved time were a few key points where Sleepy had rounded corners sharper and riskier than Blastix, netting him a time save. After Sleepy had beaten his record, Blastix shot back with a 26.99, the first sub-27. This seemed to be the final second barrier, as going a full second faster was deemed impossible. Blastix had run a nearly identical path to Sleepy, but in the final second had thrown his box into the truck a fraction of a second sooner, ending the level 0.06 seconds ahead and netting him the record. By this point, both players knew that the world record could only go so far with their current strategies. The starting cycle being used helped to get a fast box jump every time, but there was still one long-known strategy left to add, the boxless jump. In order to incorporate this jump into a run, the level would have to be started on an earlier frame, as waiting the same amount of time as before caused the jump distance to be too far for the jump to work. The first person to successfully incorporate this jump into an optimized run was Sleepy, beating Blastix 26.99 by a whopping 0.42 seconds, almost the exact same amount of time he had originally saved over Ryan's first record. Sleepy had started movement a fraction of a second earlier than before, allowing him to run the same straight line as he had in his previous record, only this time, the distance he had to jump was even shorter, allowing him to jump straight to the other platform without having to slow down. He coasted to the finish, executing all previous strategies for a new world record. By this point, the record was looking very solid. All previously theorized strategies had been implemented in a single run: the boxless jump, straight lines, tight corners, and an early throw at the end. But Blastix had one more trick up his sleeve. Up until this point, the middle section of the run was fairly straightforward. Jump up the stairs without slowing down, and tighten your corners as much as possible. However, Blastix managed to do what was previously thought impossible. With many attempts under his belt, and the determination to beat a record deemed near perfection, Blastix landed a jump that was able to skip a step in the staircase. This skip allowed him to run an even straighter line towards the finish, saving him 0.15 seconds over the previous record with a 26.42. And that is where the record stands today. With such a small community, it's a wonder that this one level was able to be optimized so far beyond what was thought possible, with a total of over 2.5 seconds saved over Ryan's first run. It seems like the record has finally been optimized to the point where only minor time saves will be achieved. But, as the saying goes, you can never truly reach the limit on a level, because when you approach it, you only push it further away. These pioneers are believed to have pushed Tightrope to its limits, but for a game with so few runners, it is only a matter of time before someone steps in and proves them wrong. Thanks for watching.